Welcome, race fans. Welcome to another episode of Rubbin' is Racing. And in the studio tonight, I have a longtime friend and associate here at the 110 Nation with me, and looking forward to having him return with us on Rubbin' is Racing. Steve Billmyer is with us tonight. And how you doing tonight, Steve?
Doing good, doing real good, CJ. How about yourself?
Oh, can't complain, can't complain. As those that know me personally know how the day's been going, but not going to complain. Had a great weekend of sports, and like we was talking a little bit before the show, this last weekend was one hell of a weekend for NASCAR, and then going into Atlanta next weekend, we're expecting a lot of the same. Just glad to be here tonight. Glad to have you back on the 110 Nation Sports Radio Network and back on Rubbin' is Racing as well. Glad that your health is better and looking forward to a prosperous 2016 season for both this show and Racing with Big Sweat on Thursday nights at 9 p.m.
Yeah, I'm definitely looking forward to this year, too. I got a lot of projects, a lot of irons in the fire I'm working on, and I hope to get most of them to come together. So stick with us, folks. It's going to be a great year. We're going to talk a lot of racing.
Interesting weekend. Really, the off season ended up being an interesting off season as we led up into this season, and I kind of want to touch a little bit about the off season changes before we get to Atlanta, and I guess the two biggest topics, in which one of them end up coming into play, kind of, sort of, a little bit in the Truck Series race. And then, of course, the other one is going to affect this sport throughout the whole year. I guess the first one we can talk about is the caution clock, which ended up causing. And I kind of saw the same thing as whoever was up in the studio for Fox or FS1 or ESPN. I forget which channel I watched it on. But them trying to shoot down as the time was getting ready to expire to get on pit road before the caution came out. So they were already on road when the caution came out, caused a caution in them to happening. So it was kind of funny that the caution clock ended up causing the caution. But so far, after having an opportunity of 1 week of seeing the caution clock, one, Steve, what was your opinions going into this weekend? And then second of all, seeing it in effect at the Truck Series race, even though it only really affected it one time throughout the whole race, what was your afterthought on it?
Well, when I first heard about it, I wasn't real impressed with the idea, wasn't real thrilled with the idea. Mm-hmm. Just thought it was kind of a gimmick, but then I got into studying it a little bit during the truck race Friday night, and it's basically becoming another tool that a crew chief can use to make a change in his car's pace and position and possibly change the outcome of the race. Just, it's all about timing and how quick you can get to pit road before that caution comes out, make your stop, get back out, and be out in track position and ahead of everybody else. So there's a lot of strategy has gone on into it already, and I'm sure you'll see some more. One of the things I was trying to figure out is the start-finish line.
Oh, yeah.
Goes all the way across the track, across pit road, and through the garage. And as to which side of the pit line, the start-finish line, do you pit on? The front side where you cross over it and automatically get that lap, or where you pit before it and hold off on counting that lap? You can sit there in your pit and work on your car and wait for the leader to come back around and take that caution and jump right out and cross that line, and you're right on the next lap then. So it's going to be pretty interesting to see how those guys work with it. I don't see it moving on to the Cup or Xfinity Series, but it might just be something else to help draw people like the dirt track race at Eldora that the trucks will capitalize on.
And I agree. I kind of had my mixed thoughts because my first thought was, what if you're that team that's out front by a good couple seconds? You're getting towards the latter part of the race, and I know it don't count within the last 20 laps. But say you're about 25, 30 laps out, and there's no more pits that need to be cycled through. And you have a couple second lead, and really it's your race really at this point to win or lose. And the caution clock comes into effect and takes that lead down, and to say something that maybe that gave an opportunity to everybody to change tires, and it was one of those tracks that fresh tires dominate, so something happens in the pits or restarts, and the guy on the outside has something go wrong, it takes you out. Those are the kind of thoughts that was going through my mind. But then sitting there watching it, and having the opportunity to watch these teams try to strategize and work around, all the conditions they already had to work around, but now to include a clock that could possibly throw out another caution, definitely made things interesting. And there was actually 3 changes, and I forgot about the other one. I'm glad you brought that up. But you brought it for a different reason. But the second change, before we jump into the last one, the new overtime line. I thought that was an interesting concept that NASCAR went with. One, no longer will we have 3 attempts at a green-white checkered. The field comes around. They basically cross the start-finish line on the backstretch, and if once they do, that's it. If they don't make it to there, we can do it 100 times to get there, which would be interesting if we ever have a situation that it takes multiple times to get there. But, I like that. And a lot of people were all upset after, I want to say it was the Sprint Unlimited race or whatever race it was, that, that new rule. Well, no, it didn't really dictate anything. They completed a whole lap. So last year's rule would have went into effect that one anyway. But I like that. I liked the fact that, after we saw what we saw at Talladega, there's going to be no longer any more confusion on that. What was your thoughts initially on that, and if your thoughts changed at all on that?
Yeah, I looked at it like it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction to what happened at Talladega last year with Kevin Harvick and everything. Then again, I'm trying to stay open-minded about it. I kind of like the new rule with the overtime line and everything. I just, it's getting to where they're trying to change it every year, and they're trying to, I understand their point, they're trying to make it more competitive and everything, but everything they do, yeah, it might make it more competitive, but it penalizes the leader. If you're the leader, the easiest you're going to get off is they're going to take away all your lead that you built up, that you worked hard to build up. If you got a 3-second lead and all of a sudden they had to restart and you've lost all that because of one of these new rules, the overtime deal, or the one in the trucks, if there should be a point where at least now, if you're the leader on a restart, you get to choose whether you want to start inside or outside.
Mm-hmm.
That's kind of a little nod, a little bonus for being the leader. But at least it's not really a takeaway, even though you do have a car beside you now that can go when you go. It's just NASCAR's walking a fine line between building competitiveness and getting gimmicky. And I think they ought to just sit back and let them race and, quit worrying about how to change all the endings of the super speedway and everything. Hell, just let them eat. That's what racing's all about.
Now, the biggest change to me that came into effect, and I know they're still working out the kinks and everything else in this whole charter system, but I think that's the one I have the biggest issue with, and I'm going to explain that. I want to get your thoughts on it. I am one that I want to see the best of the best out there. We shrunk the field of 40 cars, okay, so I want to see the best 40 cars possible. not 36 that are guaranteed because they bought a spot and are guaranteed to play. To me, that's like saying that Eli Manning of the New York Giants, because he's got endorsement deals that he's got to be on the field to secure to make sure that he is taking care of what he is getting represented to do. That the New York Giants, regardless how he practices, how he does in the preseason, how he does leading up to the game, he is going to be guaranteed a spot because of a charter, and I don't believe in that. Like I said, I know the whole concept behind it, and maybe you can enlighten me even more to make me want to persuade my ways. And I understand that the sponsors want guarantees of their cars, especially the kind of money they're spending out there. But me as a fan, not as a team owner and not as a race car driver, but me as a fan, this is where I have my biggest issue because I want the best of the best out there. I'm sorry, but if Jimmy Johnson hits the wall in qualifying and he's no longer the top 40 car, and I'm sorry, you're not the best at this particular weekend, and we kind of poked all back and forth on Facebook because you're a Carolina Panther fan. It don't matter when it comes to Sunday, just like the Super Bowl. It don't matter how good you were every other day. If you can't win on that day, then it don't matter to me. And so that's I think the only change that I'm still having troubles adjusting to. And as I learn more, maybe my ways will be persuaded. But until then, I feel that I'm being cheated out of the best possible 40 cars possible, and understand that most of the time they are going to be there. It's not that I don't have faith in those 36 cars. They're almost always there. But what if that one weekend we showed up with 43 cars and Jimmy Johnson, Dale Jr., and Kevin Harvick for some reason were just the worst cars out there, and they just could not get in and be the top 40. Then I'm sorry, they should not be in the race. Those small teams that scrap to put those cars together and get those sponsors so they can be there. If they happen to run faster and they are legitimately the top 40, part of the top 40, then they should be out there, in my opinion.
It's kind of like the deal they have at a lot of schools and sports leagues now and stuff, where they don't keep score, so nobody actually wins or loses. Everybody just participates and everything. And I look at that franchise deal and how this whole owners group was supposed to help the smaller teams out, help them survive and everything, but they announced the charters and any small teams get in on that deal. Hell, the Wood brothers couldn't even get in on it.
Mm-hmm.
That's a different story. I mean, I don't see where it's helped the small teams any much at all, really. You've just got people that are guaranteed starting spots now. All they got to do is pull through the tunnel and get in the garage, and they're in the show. It just doesn't make sense to me. It's not at all. It drives the competitiveness right out of the deal. I'm like you. You have a bad qualifying run, don't make the top 40. Well, too bad, son.
Mm-hmm.
Go home, lick your wounds, and come back stronger next weekend. Don't get NASCAR to bend over to, get you in through the back door. And they say that one of the reasons they did all this was so that teams would build equity in their team. That a team owner decides to sell out, he gets something for his money, for all the money he's put in.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's kind of like, what other business can you get into that guarantees you that you'll get out okay?
Yeah.
You can't open a McDonald's franchise and expect McDonald's to pump money into your restaurant, because you had a slow month. And that, to me, that's pretty much the same thing they're doing with the charter deal. Yeah, now an owner's got something that's worth the money that he can get some of his back from if he decides to get out and sell. But what are the businesses like that? It just doesn't seem like a business model to me unless you're a car owner. Now,
Yeah.
if you're a car owner, it makes great sense. Man, hell, it's the greatest thing in the world. But I just think every year they push farther and farther away from actual racing and more toward sports entertainment, so to speak, if you know what I'm saying.
Yes.
And I just, I think they're really losing sight of what got NASCAR where it is. The short track racing and the availability of the drivers to the fans and stuff like that. The new souvenir deal they've got now instead of the individual trailers and stuff, yeah. On paper it looks good, but it takes away from the whole experience. And the experience is why you go to the race anyway. You don't go to watch the race so much. Hell, you can see it a lot better on TV. You don't have to fight the traffic when it's over. But you want to get that whole experience, and I think NASCAR is losing that.
I definitely agree, and the whole charter system. Like I said, I'm just not big on it. I want the best of the best out there, and I just feel that was like to me when they redid the rules. So first it was the top 36 in owner points. Then they rewrote the rule that was the top 36 that qualified. Then the next 4 or 6 positions was the top 36 in owner points, and then you had the provisionals, which was essentially the exact same thing, just kind of reworded the process, so you still was pretty much guaranteeing the top 36 in points in there anyway, which I was not a fan of any of those 2 prior systems as well, because it did not guarantee me to get the best of the best out there. And like I said, I know 99 out of 100 times the people that make the drivers that make the race are, they're going to make it. It's just that 1 out of 100 time. Okay, what happens with that one time that one team that needed that one opportunity, and because you guaranteed it to someone else that was simply not on their A game, you kept this team from having a chance that might have turned into a chance of a lifetime. You just never know. But we had 3 really, I don't know. I've seen many different opinions on this weekend's races. You can't argue the last 2 to 3 laps on each of the race were not good. That was a given that was going to happen. I think it was a little bit more than we expected. I don't think we expected to see 3 finishes, a wreck with a truck come tumbling, flipping over end over end to get there, and two the Xfinity Series race and the Sprint Cup Series race, seeing the leaders banging off each other coming to the finish line. I don't think we expected quite that much. Truck Series race, a great race. It was great to see. It was great, in my opinion, it was great to see all this young talent. I want to say there was something like 6 drivers that were still teenage age in this field, and it lets the fans know that not only do we have the next class of NASCAR, the next class of Sprint Cup drivers on their way, but that the exposure that now the K&M Pro Series, the ARCA Series is getting, thanks to NBC, and the Drive for Diversity program, and all these different programs and different series that work their way up, they are doing their job, and they are providing us with this very high talent. And now we're starting to reap the benefits of all these series and all these programs, and now the Truck Series, and of course some of those drivers are in the Xfinity Series as well. But it was great, in my opinion, to see all these new young talented faces and knowing that NASCAR is starting to prosper in the right direction when it comes to the talent that's going to be on the track.
Yeah, everybody's worried about Jeff Gordon's retired, Smoke's retiring this year, Junior and Jimmy Johnson are over 40, yada, yada, yada. And all you have to do is watch the truck race Friday night, and you realize NASCAR is going to be just fine if these guys leave. But there's a whole bunch standing in the wings waiting to take their place. There's a lot of talent out there. There's a lot of talent and a lot of good trucks in that series now. And I'm looking forward to watching the shows this year, especially the short track shows with the trucks, and really see some good short track racing from good short track drivers, guys that are 18 to 20 years old that aren't that far removed from Saturday night racing and remember how to do it. I'm glad to see my man Timothy Peters, an old veteran at 30 years old now. He's been around for a long time compared to some of these 18 and 19-year-olds. But Mo had a good run, stayed up front most of the day, and almost got there at the end. All in all, it was a good show. I enjoyed it. And it's like you said, we run, in my Facebook group, NASCAR and Other Racing, we run race threads where a bunch of us, of the group members, get together and chat and PM while we're all watching the race and trading ideas and talking about each other's drivers and stuff. And everybody's complaining, oh, this is so boring. Oh, it's so boring. And I'm like, is this your first Daytona race? Don't you know that this is the way these races go?
Oh, yeah.
Even in the ARCA racing, it gets kind of monotonous in the middle of the race, lap after lap. You have to actually pay attention to what's going on and listen to the track announcers to keep up mentally with what's going on. I mean, a lot of people just sit there and eat potato chips and onion dip through the middle part of the race, and they kick back 10 laps from the end, get comfortable, and wait for the big wreck. And yeah, that's the way it goes sometimes with Daytona and Talladega, but if you pay attention and look for little things, you'll stay interested during the slow parts, the long green flag runs. I do anyway.
I mean, we've come to expect, you kind of expect all three races to start off with a little bit of action. They got fresh tires, nerves, first race of the season. And then all three races, you expect the exact same thing. About midway through, they get a chance to rest. They know that last 20, 30 laps or so, things are going to get intense, and they're going to be gripping their steering wheel tighter than they have all off-season and all day long up to this point. They're going to be on the edge of their seats, and they know that they're more than likely going to have to avoid the big one at some point in the last 30 laps of the race. So middle of the race, it's kind of that opportunity to kind of relax and get into a rhythm and just kind of continue to tinker with the car to get that car set up the way you want it to be when it comes to that last 20, 30 laps. And it's to be expected. I don't know if people just think that, hey, it's supposed to be non-stop action and pack racing the entire 250, 350, or 500 miles, whatever race you watch. I don't get it. The only great thing about the Truck Series race, one, other than it's shorter, so you don't have the long, drawn-out period that, is kind of single file, less action. But the whole caution clock, that kind of gives you something to kind of throw into and kind of shorten that, because now you're watching to see, how the strategy is going to play out in the time and everything else. So there's a little bit more action, because every 20 minutes, if there's not a wreck, you're guaranteed to have something. So that helps the Truck Series. But I don't get it, because I saw that a lot throughout the day. And the co-hosts of the show last night, Damian Bean, was talking about, the first 499 laps was boring and blah, blah, blah. And I'm just sitting there thinking, okay, it's like, that's what you're going to get, a lot of races, especially super speedway, because they can't be, wild throughout the whole race, or none of these cars would finish. We saw how easily it was for Dale Jr. to lose control and Chase Elliott to lose control. They're more focused on worried about making sure they get everything tinkered and they get that aero package fine and don't just lose control. They're more focused on just getting in that rhythm, get everything fixed, and make it to the end. And I don't know, people just kill me with that. But a couple names that stuck out that I noticed at the Truck Series race, of course, Ryan Truex. If I'm not mistaken, was a one-race deal, but was out front for a while. Really looked like there for a while Ryan Truex was going to hold on to win that race. Ended up finishing second. Really good finish for Ryan Truex. And then also Ben Rhodes K&N Pro Series champion, got an opportunity to do some Xfinity Series races last year. Now in the Truck Series, top 7 finish with him as well. Was really impressed with both those guys. And then, of course, Chris Bell. It just seemed like Kyle Busch Racing didn't have any luck this weekend over in the Truck Series race anyway. And I just want to compliment NASCAR and their safety, because 8.5 flips, not 13 like they try to say upstairs there. 8.5. I had to rewind. I was like, there's no way that was 13. I rewind it and recount it, because I rewound it twice. I thought, well, maybe I missed something somewhere. But him able to walk away, and I know he went to the hospital with some bruising and stuff, but to see Chris Bell doing fine, that was also a real good sign that these trucks are doing their job, and all the safety equipment inside those trucks are doing their job as well.
Yeah, those trucks, they take a tumble, but they stay to, the basic interior, the basic cage and greenhouse and everything stays together and keeps the driver protected pretty good. So yeah, you see some spectacular flips, but you usually see the window net go down and the driver get on out. I think out of the 3 series, it's hard to say the trucks are the most exciting or the raciest series.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of excitement that gets generated when the Cup guys are racing, just because it's Dale Jr. or it's Jimmy Johnson or somebody like that that's actually racing at the moment. That's what gets a lot of people's excitement. A lot of people that are not really race fans, they're driver fans. So they're watching for a different reason and everything. And that's the thing that I don't think people realize. You sit down and watch a race on television, you're going to get out of it what you put into it, how much, effort you think to pay attention and to listen to what's going on and to try to understand what's going on. Well, that's when you start getting more out of it. I have no problem with the long green flag runs in the middle of Daytona, because I'm sitting there listening to DW and Jeff Gordon talk racing and talk about situations and stuff like that. And especially if you're a racer, if you listen, you'll learn something every now and then. You'll pick up a tip and go, hey, that sounds like a pretty good deal, and do it yourself. So, if all you want to do is see some excitement, well, YouTube might be a better place for you to watch the races, because they, just put the wrecks up there and stuff. But, if you, try to pay a little bit more attention to what's going on, try to notice a little bit more things, and the more you know, and the more you start to understand, then the more you get interested in it, and the more the interest in the races pick up. When they show in-car camera shots from the right corner of the dash showing the driver in the seat, watch his hands. Watch how much he turns that steering wheel. And you can learn whether his car is loose or tight just by how much he's having to turn that steering wheel. And if it's changing as he goes through the corner because he's having to saw the wheel back and forth, try to catch it. There's a lot going on, that a lot of people, I think, miss. And, I wish there was some way to tell them, hey, really concentrate and pay attention to what's going on, and you'll get a different vision of what stock car racing is all about.
Oh, most definitely. Definitely agree with that. We had the Xfinity Series race make its way in Saturday. Chase Elliott, it looked like this was going to be his weekend, and put on one hell of a performance for the Xfinity Series race. I love how the race ended. Kind of risky for Chase Elliott's end, knowing that Logano was where he was at, and he was willing to beat and bang on it. But it was great once again to see the new faces in the Xfinity Series, and to see. Well, actually, let's take a step back a moment before we get into the details. It was another change that we forgot to talk about, and it's more got to do with these two series and doesn't have really anything to do with the Sprint Cup series because it's already there. But now they have a chase system, and now they have a whole different kind of mind frame, and it's kind of given opportunities, a little bit more of an opportunity maybe for these smaller teams, because if you can find a way to get into victory lane, there's a chance that you're going to be in the chase. Now, obviously, it's not the same you win, you're in concept, because they're only having, seven drivers or something to that fact.
Yeah.
But, and I think 8 in the Xfinity Series. I forget what the numbers in the Xfinity Series. But now you kind of take things a little bit differently in the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series than you normally would. What was your thoughts when NASCAR decided to make a chase series out of those two series as well?
It was a smart move. The old point system is what it is. It's the old point system. It doesn't reflect today's racing and the way racing's done now. The original point system was set up to basically pay small-funded teams money at the end of the year to run as many races as they could.
Mm-hmm.
To kind of guarantee a full field. And I don't think that problem exists too much now, but it's too early to tell. We might have some races this year with a 37-car field instead of a 440-car field or whatever. But there just wasn't much excitement to the old style. Never was. And there really wasn't any way to make it exciting without putting a chase in it. And the chase in Sprint Cup has done what it was designed to do. It's promoted interest. It's increased the competition side of the deal. And it gives you not so much a playoff type deal, but something to shoot for during the year. Something to focus on, and as soon as you reach that goal, as soon as you win a race, switch your focus to preparing for the chase and start working on different areas. It puts a little bit more, to me, it puts more interest in it, into the race, into the whole points race itself and everything. And it, like I said, it reflects the way racing is now, where the old point system reflected the way racing was in the 60s.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm glad they put it in the trucks and the Xfinity Series, and I think it'll work real good in those series too.
I like it. You know, and I don't know, seeing, you got NASCAR fans out there that are set in their ways, and I know you see it in your Facebook group, and I see it across Facebook all the time. Those fans that are still set in their way, and they just want the old point system back. And NASCAR is never going to go back to the old point system, no matter how much they try to complain about it. But two, I like to know that I'm guaranteed to have, especially in the Sprint Cup Series, and I forget what it breaks down to. I don't know if they still have 4 when we get to the last race for the Truck Series and the Xfinity Series as well. But I know at least in the Sprint Cup Series, and that we're going to be guaranteed to have at least 4 contenders. We're going to at least have 4 cars out there that can win the championship. And now the Xfinity Series, Truck Series, we're going to at least have more than one. The old system, there was no guarantee. I remember going to my first NASCAR race in '95. Atlanta used to be the final race of the season, and we went to that race, and Gordon won the championship that year. And he had to do nothing more than simply finish 35th or better, I think, that year. And I know that we've had years that have come down to the last race, and there'll be a couple guys in it, but never are we going to see the action and the excitement and the possibility of so many cars still able to. I mean, you got to figure even in the race before the race, we still have 8 guys possible to win the championship, and it's not to the last race, you're down to 4 guys. And so that whole concept, to me, I love the chase, because I want to have a reason to, and more than just, okay, Gordon, start the car, you win the championship. I want there to be many possibilities to lead into the final race of the season, and gives us just that more of a reason to tune in. That's why Miami's become such a hot race for everybody to watch, and why it's been selling out. And and you can say what you want to say about the chase, especially for those that are set in their ways, but there's no way that you can convince me all the fights and everything that went on in the first year, and then last year with the whole Matt Kenseth stuff and the whole Kevin Harvick eliminating or causing the wreck at Talladega, just to be into this chase so that they could be there for the last race of the season. You can't tell me that this excitement, especially these last 10 races. I just wish that NASCAR could find, and I'm not trying to say NASCAR is a boring sport or this, that, and the other, but I wish there was some way that they could capture a way to have the excitement that we have in the first or the last 10 races. I wish there was a way to make that same excitement be for the first 26 races. The passion, the intensity, because those last 10 races, those are, I don't care what anybody says, those are must-watch races. It don't matter if you're not a fan of a certain kind of track. It's not a fan. It don't matter if you're not a certain fan of a night race, Saturday race, whatever the case may be. Those 10 races, those 10 races got to be marked on your calendar, because without a shadow of a doubt, something is going to happen. And I love that we have that, especially those 10 races. And like I said, I wish they could find a way to make the other 26 races to be so impactful and so much going on. And I guess it's kind of the same thing as Daytona. We got the Daytona, we got that excitement. Now we need a kind of a part of the season where we get to calm down and coast until we get to that 10 race shootout. If not, we might all fall over and not be able to handle it. I guess it's kind of the same concept there, but I definitely love that they brought that on. Chase Elliott ended up winning the Xfinity Series race. Very good race. Logano beating up the whole rear quarter panel of that car coming to the finish line. I think we learned a lot from that race. We learned the outside line was just, and we learned that really from the Truck Series as well. That outside line was a line that it took, honestly, it would take a couple very, very strong cars. It was the outside line to me all weekend long was not a line for a mediocre car. It had to be a car that was fast by itself. It couldn't be a car that was fast in a draft, because it was not strong enough. And we got to see that a little bit more in the Xfinity Series race. We got to see a little bit more of the strategy and kind of got an idea, a little bit more of what to expect on Saturday. I think we got to see a good performance out of Darrell Wallace. I think it was a promising Brandon Jones and Daniel Suarve as well. I like Casey Kane having a great day. I honestly thought that was going to kind of carry over into Sunday's race. I don't remember even seeing much about Casey Kane all day Sunday. But all in all, it was Daytona, and to me, it was action-packed. It was a lot of strategies, with a lot of things going on. You were learning a lot of things. I really enjoyed having the opportunity to sit down and watch the Xfinity Series race. What key points did you make a mental note coming into tonight's show from the Xfinity Series race, Steve?
The biggest thing that I kind of noticed is the Xfinity Series, they would run in two lines.
Mm-hmm.
Very seldom did you see them get three wide and race for any length of time three wide.
Mm-hmm.
Sunday in the Cup race, they're three wide most of the time. Late in the run, when the tires are losing grip, you can see the cars in both series kind of dance around and jump where the air is buffeting the car around and everything. But then again, it seemed to me it was more extreme on the Xfinity Series cars than it was the sprint cars. So that got me wondering, were there two different body styles? Is there that much aerodynamic difference that with the Xfinity body styles you can't run three wide? The car just either won't run or it's too hard to drive, especially if you're caught in the middle in the sippy hole. Whereas the aero superiority of the Cup cars makes them seemed to be more stable, more planted to the track. And on one hand, they could run 3 wide and not have too much difficulty. But on the other hand, you don't see anybody in the Xfinity Series side draft too much. And side drafting was a big deal yesterday at Daytona.
Mm-hmm.
So that's, there's a big, it really got to me this past weekend that there is a noticeable aerodynamic difference in those two body styles.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just wondering, how would the Cup cars run in Mustang bodies and Camaro bodies? Something to look at, something to be thinking about, because there's a vast difference there. And, but I guess until next week this time, after we've run that low downforce package and see how it's doing, will they decide what to do about the body styles. But even in the ARCA race, which then again, ARCA runs different body styles than Xfinity and Cup. Those cars, out of the 3 groups, those were the ones bouncing around the worst. And those were the ones that they just absolutely wouldn't go 3 wide with them. So it's kind of caught my eye, got my eye going to noticing how much difference there is in the fact that they run 3 different body styles. Makes it pretty interesting to me. That's the biggest thing I got out of this weekend. That's what I focused in on, and that's what I watched all weekend.
I don't know. I enjoyed it, and watching Chase Elliott. I have mixed emotions with the whole Chase Elliott thing. It was great to see him win the race. I was a Bill Elliott fan growing up, and I'm having a bad feeling that my feelings towards Chase Elliott are starting to be more like your Dale Juniors, where people are kind of expecting and kind of putting him on this pedestal and feeding the silver spoon to someone that has not yet proved anything. And it was great to see him win, and it was great to see him be willing to go door to door with Joey Logano. That helped for me solidify a little bit more. Not that he ain't necessarily proved, but in the Sprint Cup Series, he's not proved himself. And then we roll into Sunday's race, and he got the pole. And honestly, I thought the whole pole thing was going to be more of a controversial thing. When we watch Martin Truex get penalized and his time not allowed and have to start at the rear of the field for the qualifying race for the same thing that we saw Chase Elliott car have an issue with, and yet there was nothing said or nothing done about it, I kind of really thought that there would be a lot more people that would have keyed in on this. And I guess this is kind of more of why my feelings had evolved the way they did, because we all know if the same scenario had been someone else and Dale Jr., his eyes would have been turned the opposite direction. And so I don't want to have that same feeling, but we also know if that would have been Kyle Busch that would have got the pole, and we would have seen the same thing that I know was posted in your Facebook group as well, of someone taking a picture of the TV screen, and we could still see that roof flap was not flush, and that's what Martin Truex got penalized for. I'm not understanding how NASCAR did not, catch that, and how that was never a thing. I know that you kind of said this is how there's conspiracy theory stuff and talking about the inconsistency a little bit. But what was your thoughts on that? How surprised was you that there was pictures of Chase Elliott winning the pole with the same thing that Martin Truex time was not allowed on?
I wasn't real surprised. I mean, I hate to be cynical, but it's typical NASCAR stuff, really, to me. People try to justify it by saying Truex's flap was raised up going through inspection where Chase Elliott's was flush going through inspection and raised up when he got out on the track. And, well, that might be true, but, you know, either way, it's a rules violation.
Mm-hmm.
You know, if it's up, if it's not flush, it's not flush. At a super speedway, if it's raised up 1/8 of an inch in the back, it'll take, you know, 100 pounds or more downforce off the rear spoiler just by knocking that little bit of air off. It decreases the drag. Less drag is more speed. There's a lot of advantage to just get that back edge up, to deflect that air up away from that rear spoiler. Regardless of whether it's you're sitting still or you're on the track, there's still an advantage there. And if you're going to call it an illegal advantage on one, it needs to be called an illegal advantage on all of them.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like there was controversy about the drafting at the end of the race and how you can't stay hooked up, how you can bump and then you got to back off. And some weren't doing that. Some were staying hooked up longer than the others. And I mean, you know, sorry, NASCAR, but you're digging these holes yourself, you know. Nobody's tripping you up or anything. I mean, you're screwing this up yourself. You got to be consistent and call stuff the same day in, day out, hour after hour, you know. If Truex is wrong and you show me a picture of Elliott going around the track with his up, which if you look, you could see it, you know. If you're there at the track, you'd be able to notice it. You know, why not call it? You know, everybody else is seeing it. They know what's going on. And then NASCAR doesn't make the call, and it just makes them look weak. And I really think they need to fix that. That's something they really need to focus on, is strengthening their image of being a governing body.
Yeah. And I agree. I mean, you are the governing body. You dictate everything. It's a dictatorship, and you are screwing this up yourselves. Like there's nobody else to screw this up for you. It's all in your hands, and it just blows my mind. Chase Elliott learned quickly that being out there and especially being out front for the Daytona 500, it's maybe not all what he thought it was going to be, or it's not the same as the Xfinity Series. I know that he ran some races last year in the Sprint Cup Series, but I don't think we ever recall seeing him up front. And I think he had some good solid finishes, but I don't remember ever like being up front. And so that's I know Dale Jr. at the beginning of the race tried to give him a chance to get some experience and try to know what it's like to be out front. And maybe hope for the best, but that quickly faded as he quickly went to the back, or at least the middle of the field, until he ended up having his issues and getting loose and hitting that grass. Has that grass always been that critical on vehicles? I don't remember the cars always being torn up so badly by going through that grass. Is it always been that bad?
Yeah. You know, back in the 70s and the 80s, we ran a front spoiler, a chin spoiler, down under the front valence, and if you got out in the grass, it would bend it up or tear it off. I mean, it's just part of the deal. Everybody's all critical about the grass now, and you know how that's causing unnecessary damage or anything. Well, you know, so what? You're not working on the car. Don't worry about it. I don't see any problem with having the grass out there. Yeah, it doesn't scrub off any speed, but you know, how much speed did Kyle Busch scrub off last year before he slammed that inside wall? I mean, you know, on paper, yeah, it doesn't scrub any speed off to slide across the grass, but you know, you hook that dirt like that, it'll sure take some speed off of it.
Oh yeah.
let it go, geez, until it causes a bigger problem. They paved that beginning of pit road area between there and coming off turn 4 at Daytona after Ricky Rudd had that violent wreck in Bud Moore's car. And it's helped. You haven't seen anything like that in that part of the track since then.
Mm-hmm.
You know, they just it just moves down closer to the start-finish line where the grass is. You know, I understand the grass thing, but geez, let it go. We got more problems than the damn grass on the front stretch.
Most definitely, and it ruined Chase's day. And I tell you what, I think that's got to be the best thing when we talk about the Chase. The best thing to happen to Chase Elliott's because, you know, in the old system, now he would have quite a deficit to work his way back up. But now, it being the first race is not, you know, that severe. But you know, it put him way behind. But now with the new Chase system, you know, he can come back and win a race at any point in the season and pretty much be in the Chase. And you know, I know that's kind of your catch-22 with that, you know, people, all you do is win a race, that's it. You don't got to perform the rest of the races. But for Chase's sake, you know, obviously the Chase will help Chase out, especially if they can find themselves in victory lane before the Chase begins. I have all confidence in the 24 team in Hendrick Motorsports that we will see that 24 car up there towards the front. It's whether or not we'll see him in victory lane this year. We'll still have to see that. The other favorite. Go ahead.
It's a big priority at Hendrick Motorsports for Chase to do good. It's just as big as Jimmy Johnson winning another championship. You know, that is a tremendous amount of publicity generated by that 24 team right now because of the driver and everything. And publicity is what drives sales, and that's what sponsors want. So Hendrick Motorsports is smart enough. They're going to milk that for everything they can get out of it. And I don't blame them. You know, it's opened people's eyes. They're looking at Chase.
One of the other favorites to win this weekend was Dale Jr. Had great speed weeks, had a very dominant car. And then Daytona came, and I think he pointed out the fact that everything was pretty much night and evening. Daytona's during the daytime, they just didn't have their cars set up right for that condition. But lost control, took himself out of contention for the win as well, and finished in 36. I was honestly kind of surprised that Dale Jr. did not win the race as much as I was hoping not. There was two drivers that I was hoping I was not going to find a victory lane, the 88 and the 22, for personal reasons. And I got to say that I did have a smile on my face when Jr. was eliminated from the contention of winning. But I was surprised. He did have a very strong car. 88 always comes very strong. And, you know, Amelia has found herself in victory lane and been up front a lot. And I was really expecting a lot more of the same this weekend as well.
I didn't expect him to win this week, even after he ran so good earlier in the week, simply because the Daytona 500 is a tough race to win back-to-back.
Mm-hmm.
You'll come back thinking you're in good shape because you won the year before and your wind tunnel numbers look good and everything. But there's always somebody else that finds a little something that sets them apart from the others. And that's the guy you don't suspect of being a threat to keeping you from winning 2 in a row until it's 5 laps to go and you're a car length behind him and not pulling any closer. I would have liked to have seen, you know, Dale win too for Hendrick Motorsports because it is such a rarity to win back-to-back Daytona 500s, but I really didn't expect it, and I can kind of tell you right now it's going to be a different winner next year. very sure of that too. Who knows? Might be Martin Truex's time next year.
Race kind of went along is kind of how we expected it. The first, I don't know, about 30 laps was kind of everybody kind of getting a feel, trying to get where they wanted to be for that long stretch of single file, little double file, but mainly single file run. And then business picked up as we got to the end of the race. And you knew, you got this feeling when we got to the last, I don't know, maybe even 50 laps of the race, that it was going to come down to a Joe Gibbs racing car or the affiliate of Martin Truex now. It was going to come down to one of them. And I tell you what, I applaud them for their patience. They're willing to work with each other, and the way that they put themselves in that opportunity to be there at the end of the race, because not every team and not every driver is willing to sacrifice to let somebody else and let even a couple other cars sit in front of you, as long as they did, and not disrupt anything. Now, obviously, Carl Edwards, you kind of can remove from that whole equation because he wasn't doing anything. He had too much aerial damage done. I think he was just happy and thrilled that he was able to be where he was at. But those other guys, the Matt Kenseth, Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, and Martin Truex, coming out and lining themselves up on the restart, letting each other get into line, not leaving anybody hanging out to dry. We don't traditionally get to see that with every team. And I think we saw a little bit of it in the Xfinity Series race throughout, part of it, if I remember correctly. But what we got to see Sunday, what was something that I don't ever really recall it seeing, especially for the extended period of time that they did it. And I tell you what, that team, and then the addition of Truex and the Furniture Row team, if they can keep their egos aside and continue to work with each other to make the whole program continuously being better. I tell you what, they were scary bad last year. I can only imagine how much better they can get even this year. Now another year underneath with everybody being there and them all being on the same sheet of music.
Yeah. Damn, I lost my train of thought. Talk for a minute while I figure out what I was thinking.
But like I said, I was really impressed with that. And when we was coming to the white flag, we had seen many people try to make that outside work. And I got in this whole conversation, like I said earlier, I don't think, unless you had a couple cars that were really strong when they did single car runs, that you just couldn't come up on that outside line. It required you to be a few miles an hour faster as a pack than the whole inside line, just because the path you was traveling. And I kind of got in this argument because someone was talking about, well, the outside just didn't work. It was boring because there was not two lanes, this, that, and the other. Well, that was not 100% true. There was two lanes there, and you knew that if you could find the right cars, they can make it work. And when we got to see them on the last lap, I was like, that's exactly what we saw in the last lap. You happened to see Harvick, who was always a fast car, hook up with Hamlin. Well, Hamlin just kind of jumped in front of the situation to try to give him an opportunity to win. But once we saw those two cars that were fast as individual cars instead of just in the pack, we finally had that combination happen. Plus, everybody was backed up behind Kevin Harvick that helped give that hard push. We just hadn't seen that all race long, and we really hadn't seen that much in the rest of the series because everybody was kind of looking for their teams. They weren't necessarily, and I noticed that a lot over the weekend, people weren't necessarily looking for maybe the best running mate. They were looking for their teammate. And unless you were Joe Gibbs Racing on Sunday, your teammate maybe more than likely was not usually the best running mate for you. And coming around that last lap and seeing it, you knew somebody was going to try something. And I honestly, I thought it was going to be anybody. I know they kept saying Denny Hamlin, and I was not surprised he jumped out there. I was surprised he got the win. He was fourth when he took the white flag. I honestly thought because of the fact that even though there was an affiliation, that Martin Truex wasn't Joe Gibbs Racing. If anybody tried to jump out of line and make that move and almost cause Matt Kenseth the wreck, I honestly thought it would have been him. So you know what? I played the good Toyota role. I played the good affiliation role. But when it came down to it, I'm not Joe Gibbs Racing. I don't. It don't matter to me if you guys finish 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If you get with this affiliation, if we finish, I finish 1 and you guys finish in 30 on back. It doesn't matter to me. That's what I honestly thought was going to end up playing out. We weren't sure how strong Martin Truex's car was because we never seen him get out front. We knew he was strong enough to at least be up there, but like I said, even to this point, I don't know if we knew how strong his car was. Obviously, pretty strong because Kevin Harvick gave Denny Hamlin one hell of a shove, and he still almost fended him off for the win. But I don't even know if Martin Truex truly knew what he had Sunday because he played second, third, or fourth fiddle all day long. He played the good teammate to build this relationship versus looking out for himself and even seeing how good his car truly was.
Yeah, he definitely spent the weekend making friends and making a good impression on Joe Gibbs. He did everything right. He was a great teammate. He was helpful, and he almost pulled it off. But I felt like there at the end that he wasn't going to go. He might go with somebody else, but he wasn't going to lead the charge. And, on the other hand, Denny Hamlin is like the Casey Kane of Joe Gibbs Racing, the least amount of respect. So Denny's thinking, well, hell, I ain't got nothing to lose. What are they going to do? Not like me more if this move doesn't work? So, he was in the catbird seat, really, with his attitude and everything. He was the one that was going to make or break things to keep things going. Carl Edwards was there. He was like, so, he couldn't lead with the damage that he had. He could push, but he couldn't lead. So he wasn't going to jump out, follow somebody else out. And Kenseth, he just got the short end of the stick, and he had to grin and bear it. That's all it is to it.
Last lap move, actually kind of the backstretch in turn 3, 4 move that got Hamlin past Kenseth, and then the race back to the finish. Closest finish in NASCAR, Daytona 500 history. I don't think we could ask for any better of a finish. Like I said, we started off this weekend with it a close, door banging, trucks flipping on Friday night. We had Logano and Chase Elliott beating each other's fenders off coming to the checker on Saturday. And then we watched the move that Denny Hamlin put on and them banging on each other, Truex and Hamlin coming back to the start-finish line. How impressed was you with how Hamlin weaved through that obstacle and split them two to make this even possible? And how great was it to have the closest finish in Daytona 500 history this weekend?
Well, it's something they needed. They needed a record-setting deal, so to speak, the closest finish in history at Daytona. It's the perfect beginning to this season, like the chase was to the end of the season in 2014. It couldn't have been any better for NASCAR. And I think this the whole week at Daytona was kind of the same way. It really turned out and worked out good in NASCAR's favor. So they've started the season strong, and there's a lot of anticipation for the next few races coming up to see how things are going to sort out early in the year. So, it's the first race, excitement's up. It's what NASCAR needs. So I'm glad for them. More power to them, and let's see what happens.
Definitely glad that the NASCAR season is underway. I'm looking forward to checking out the new rule package this coming up weekend in Atlanta. Hopefully we'll start to see more of the speeds and see this track be more of the Atlanta that we grew up in, and me and you grew up watching and getting to love and enjoy. I've had the opportunity to be in Atlanta back in '95, and then a couple years ago I went to as media. So I've had my experience. And love the track and love have the opportunity to be there and watch it. So I'm looking forward to it. What key things do you think we need to look out for coming up this weekend?
I think it'll be interesting to see how the low downforce works on these cars at a track that carries as much speed as Atlanta does. It's kind of worked out pretty good that Atlanta's the second race and first race for this package and everything, because it's a good place to test the low downforce, because downforce is critical there. So it should be a good race. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be one of the better races of the season, and you hear people dog Atlanta the way they dogged Dover, because it's such a boring race and everything. And I'm sorry for you. I'm enjoying it. I'm sorry you're not.
Most definitely. Of course I am. I love this. As always, Steve, I love having your insight. Love having your background to be able to pick your brain about the things we get to see on a week-to-week basis. Definitely looking forward to Atlanta this weekend, and look forward to being back here Monday night, 7 p.m. again next week to talk about Atlanta and talk about Week 2 in the NASCAR world.
Absolutely. Like I said, I'm really looking forward to this weekend. I think it's going to be a great race, and I think it's going to be really exciting. There's no personalities or grudges or anything going on right now, so it's just going to be 40 drivers that want to go ahead and get that victory under their belt, so they can quit worrying about making the chase and start working on winning the chase. So it'll be a good weekend, well worth the wait.
Well, make sure that you guys check out Steve Billmyer's group, NASCAR and Other Racing, on Facebook. A really big group. They had, I want to say I saw something like 1,000 comments in the race thread. They make race threads for each of the race, and they have a great time over there talking about the race. They have a bunch of race car drivers themselves and other people that are involved with different types of racing and different positions of racing, giving their opinions and joining in the conversation. So make sure you guys get over there. It's NASCAR and Other Racing. Make sure you guys join that group and enjoy yourselves over there. You can follow me at CJ Sports 1. You can follow the 110 Nation at 110 Nation. I want to thank everybody for making it possible. Our goal last week was to hit 800 likes on our fan page. We hit it. If you're not a fan of it, go over to 110 Nation Sports on Facebook and give us a like as we continue growing over there. Steve, I want to thank you once again for hanging out with me and doing this, and looking forward to hanging out with you on Thursday and being on Racing with Big Sweat at 9 o'clock, and look forward to next Monday night.
Thanks for having me on, CJ. I appreciate it. Always a pleasure, and looking forward to getting together with you Thursday night on Racing with Big Sweat. It's going to be a really good show Thursday night. We got 3 very interesting people lined up for us, and we got a lot to talk about, so tune us in 9 o'clock Thursday night on 110 Nation Sports Radio.
Y'all have a great night.